Guys, Ferrari is preparing the move of the century for the second half of this season. The second aduo token isn't just bringing a bigger turbocharger. At Maranello, they're rethinking the entire philosophy of the component. The number of blades, the angle, the materials, and potentially even the size itself. The stated goal is power parity with Mercedes. The debut will come at Zandvoort or Monza. But there's more. At Silverstone, Ferrari uncovered another secret weapon, hidden inside the SF26. The car no longer suffers from drag. The floorboards from the start of the season have been reintroduced, the bodywork has been slimmed down, and the Macarena wing is efficient even in its closed configuration. On straights without DRS, Ferrari recorded the highest top speeds on the entire grid, a clear advantage that only Ferrari and Mercedes currently share. Now imagine what happens when the second aduo token combines with that kind of versatility. Let's dig into every detail, but first, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay all the way to the end. Friends, before the start of the 2026 season, Ferrari made a very specific engineering decision about the turbocharger on the SF26. They deliberately chose a smaller turbo, and they had a clear technical reason for doing it. Without the MGU-H, the turbocharger's response time depended entirely on exhaust gas energy. A smaller turbocharger reaches peak pressure faster. It eliminates the lag that could have defined every acceleration phase, every standing start, every restart behind the safety car. Ferrari accepted less peak power at high speeds in exchange for a more explosive power transition. Then the Federation introduced the 5-second pre-start procedure, a rule created for safety reasons, which gave every car on the grid enough time to reach comparable pressure levels before the lights went out. Ferrari's explosive start advantage was neutralized overnight. The straight-line penalty from the smaller turbo remained. 9 races paid the price for a decision that made perfect sense in February but was already obsolete by March. The first aduo token targeted the combustion chamber. Modifications to the steel alloy cylinder head. The intercooler temperature ceiling was raised from 100 to 110 degrees. A revised shell fuel formulation was introduced as well. In Austria, the extreme conditions forced the engine into protective modes. At Silverstone, in cooler conditions, that same engine produced a double-digit improvement in kilowatts. Ferrari finished first and second at the speed trap for the first time in 2026, at a circuit where the deficit was supposed to be most visible. But the Silverstone data confirms something that combustion chamber changes alone cannot fix. The turbocharger's airflow ceiling is still a limiting factor. The second aduo token is designed specifically to remove the peak airflow ceiling at maximum sustained speeds under full throttle. A turbocharger can only move as much air as the impeller geometry allows. Improvements to the combustion chamber make better use of every unit of air, but they cannot increase the total volume of air the turbocharger delivers at peak demand. That is exactly what the second token addresses. Austria and Silverstone were about efficiency. Zandvoort or Monza is about the ceiling. The impeller diameter will remain unchanged. What is changing is the number of blades and the blade angle. These are precision engineering changes rather than dimensional ones. A turbocharger's efficiency is not determined by physical size alone. The relationship between blade count, blade angle, and diameter determines how effectively exhaust gas energy is converted into compressed air. Material developments add another dimension entirely. More advanced materials allow higher rotational speeds before centrifugal stress becomes a structural risk. But the most significant detail is that Ferrari is now also considering a larger turbocharger, potentially abandoning the smaller unit altogether. The word "considering" matters here. The decision has not been finalized. Ferrari is evaluating whether the gain from switching to a larger impeller justifies the cost of redesigning rear components. Personally, I find this choice fascinating. If Ferrari goes with the bigger turbo, they arrive at Zandvoort or Monza with a fundamentally different engine. Not an incremental improvement, a different engine. The target is power parity with Mercedes. The total deficit is estimated at between 40 and 45 horsepower. The two aduo faces combined are targeting 30 horsepower of recovery. That leaves a residual gap of 10 to 15 horsepower. It is not literal parity, but it is competitive parity. And now we come to the stunning discovery from Silverstone. Ferrari has found another weapon inside the SF26, one that no other team currently has. Going into the weekend, Ferrari looked set to confirm themselves as the fourth force on the grid. The long straights and the limited hybrid recharging opportunities seemed to favor their rivals. But the circuit told a very different story. From Friday practice, it was clear that Ferrari was deploying electrical energy in a completely different way. The engineers chose to maximize power only between the end of the second sector and through the third, relying on the chassis to limit losses in the first sector. A winning strategy that other teams quickly began to copy. But behind that excellent energy management lies a significant body of work done to reduce aerodynamic drag. The SF26 was born as a car capable of generating a lot of downforce, a characteristic that in the early races was hurting performance on long straights. Today, the quality of the chassis allows the engineers to sacrifice some cornering performance in exchange for greater efficiency in high-speed sections. Ferrari reintroduced the floorboards used at the start of the season, temporarily setting aside their more recent developments. This configuration reduces aerodynamic load, but makes the car significantly more efficient on the straights. The floor also appears to have received refinements, while the slimmer bodywork has contributed to cutting drag even further. The most effective weapon, though, remains the Macarena rear wing. During the design phase, Ferrari managed to create a wing that is extremely efficient, even in its closed configuration. At Silverstone, on the very straights where active aerodynamics could not be deployed, the SF26 recorded the highest top speeds on the circuit. Personally, I find this capability absolutely remarkable. Ferrari, on straights without DRS, has the highest speeds. That is a massive advantage. In upcoming races, they could also remove the small fin behind the exhaust to unlock even more straight-line power. This proves that the SF26 no longer suffers from aerodynamic resistance, and it confirms the enormous flexibility of this car's concept. The engineers can reduce downforce knowing they can rely on an extremely competitive chassis, one capable of compensating for the loss of downforce through the corners. A characteristic that at this moment only Ferrari and Mercedes appear to possess. Both can count on very complete packages, while the teams further down the grid are struggling to find equally effective compromises between aerodynamic efficiency and overall performance. The second aduo token lands on top of all of this, not on an uncertain chassis still searching for its identity, but on a car that has already proven it can lead for 41 laps and top the speed trap. With a 10 to 15 horsepower deficit instead of 45, the chassis advantage through the corners is more than enough to offset the remaining engine gap. A car that is faster in every corner but loses 4/10 on the straight becomes a car that is faster in every corner and neutral on the straight. That transforms Ferrari from a team that needs external circumstances to go their way into a team that can beat Mercedes on equal terms. Hamilton is 32 points behind Antonelli after Silverstone. The gap closed because of Antonelli's retirement. But the second token changes the entire picture. A Ferrari with a 10 to 15 horsepower deficit can fight Mercedes without depending on reliability problems. Let's recap. The second aduo token revolutionizes the turbocharger. Different blades, a different angle, advanced materials. Ferrari is also evaluating a larger turbo. Debut at Zandvoort or Monza. 30 horsepower of total recovery. A residual gap of 10 to 15 horsepower, offset by the chassis. The SF26 no longer suffers from drag. Floorboards reintroduced slimmer bodywork. The Macarena wing is efficient even in its closed position. Highest top speeds on straights without DRS. Only Ferrari and Mercedes share this versatility. The home race at Monza is where the championship picture will be most clearly defined. The turbocharger is not just an engineering decision. It is the component that determines whether the second half of 2026 is a Ferrari World Championship campaign or simply a race-winning program. Ferrari is about to complete the most competitive package we have seen from them in years. The red car finally has everything it needs to fight for the title. Let me know in the comments, do you think Ferrari will go with the bigger turbo or stick with the blade revision? And is solving the drag problem enough on its own? Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That's all for now. See you next time.